Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of Melt Well, Amanda Martiny. Amanda, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, Frank.
Great. Thanks for joining us. So Amanda, why don't you tell us what is Melt Well and how did you get started?
Okay, so Melt Well is the brainchild of infrared sauna and cold plunging and vitamin C showers all rolled into a private suite for each client. It's recovery and wellness and longevity, just all built into one studio.
Wow. Okay. How did you get started with this?
Okay, so my background is in nursing, and I was traveling as a nurse for like a 2 or 3 week stint, and I was eating out all the time. My sleep was disturbed. I, just overall wasn't feeling myself. And I was staying at a hotel where next door, do you remember Groupon?
Of course.
Like
Yeah, of course.
So next door to the hotel was a studio. It was like a therapist's office, massage therapy with a sauna in it. And I said, okay, I've been hearing a little bit about it. Let me try it. I hated it. I went in, I did 45 minutes of this like super hot box, boring. I was reading the pamphlet that like how to build the sauna inside of it. It couldn't have been worse. So, but knowing that I had 2 more, I wasn't going to let them go. So I scheduled like before I left, went back to the hotel, slept like a baby. And I knew that it was because of that. Did it again, really dove into learning about the benefits, why is this happening? And then tried to find it when I came back home, and it didn't exist. It didn't exist at all. So that drove my purpose into bringing this now into New Orleans.
Wow. Okay. And now, but you've married the infrared sauna with the cold plunge. So
Right.
How did the cold plunge thing start for you? And then I want to get into the benefits of both, because I did a little bit of research on how you use kind of pulsing back and forth and how that really works. But tell us first about the cold plunge studio. How'd that part get started?
Yeah. So full transparency, my dad was a huge athlete in college and then a pro for a portion. And he had always said, Amanda, we use infrared sauna therapy or infrared therapy for recovery. He goes, and we also use cold plunging. And I was like, oh, I don't know, Dad, it sounds messy. It's, how am I going to make that work like in the studio? And he's like, I'm telling you, you got to do it. Like there is just nothing like it for recovery. And sure enough, I added one to the studio and it went through the roof. People before TikTok and before, all of the podcasts were coming out about the benefits and the it's on the tip of everybody's tongue. He had already known about it. So I put it in the studio and people just went crazy.
Okay. So tell us, what are the benefits of the kind of the pulsing back and forth between the two therapies?
Yeah. So contrast therapy, which is the hot and the cold modalities melted together, there's a lot of benefit with mental health. It's been shown to boost your dopamine levels 250% over 4 hours. So you literally cannot leave Melt Well without feeling like a superhero.
Okay, that's great.
So that's just like the one side of mental health. But I mean, physical recovery, if you have an injury, there is nothing better than that hot infused heat and then the cold to just constrict everything. Your sleep is improved, inflammation goes down. There's just a whole world that opens up when you do it.
So you mentioned that your background is in nursing. So tell the audience what happened with your nursing career and then how you end up doing this and what's happening to you now today.
Yeah, so this story is maybe not one of my finest, but I've learned to embrace it. So
go ahead, do it.
So we opened up Melt Well in March of 20, and we all know what happened in March of 20, right? The world blew up.
Right.
I signed a lease on the studio. I was working as a nurse at the time remotely because nobody could go into the office during the pandemic. I had an option at that point to either not open or to open. And I said, you know what? This is going to be awesome for people. So I decided to full on go through. June 1st, we opened our doors. And mind you, I'm still working remotely as a nurse, taking calls from physicians, you know, going through both jobs, straddling both 50% with the healthcare job and then 50% with the studio. Eventually the wheels fell off the bus.
Of course they did.
I had to go with the one that I had the investment in. But so I remember distinctly, I was on the phone with a doctor and I had clients walking in. We were so busy. We were essential healthcare. So we were able to keep our doors open and we were like the hottest new thing in town, no pun intended, because we were a sauna studio. But people were like, I mean, I couldn't keep them.
Wow.
I couldn't keep the doors unlocked anyway. So I'm on the phone with the doctor and he's saying, okay, I need help with this. I said, oh, do you mind, Dr. James? I just got to put you on hold for a second. And I've got two clients in the room going, hey, this is how the light works. This is how the TV works. And enjoy your session. And I'm back on the phone with him going, I'm so sorry. So eventually our leadership called me over Zoom. I'm in the laundry room of the studio with my video off. And they're like, we really just feel like you got some other stuff going on. We're going to part ways. And I had maybe 5 seconds to be like, okay, wipe my eyes,
right,
go back, room the next client. I don't recommend that to anybody, but it's reality.
That's what happened. That's great. Now, but there's a great ending to the story now. So now Meltwell, it's going great. And now what happens with the same hospital?
Yeah. So unbeknownst to them, they have been sponsoring events and hiring us to do cold.
That's great. The people have fired you. That's great. Amanda, I say this all kidding aside, it's pretty hard. I mean, as a nurse, they let you go in the middle of 2020. Like they knew you were up. They knew you were up to something else.
I don't know, Frank. Can they really prove it?
All right, sure. Why not? It's great though that, you were very, very fortunate that you had something going absolute gangbusters though.
But I knew it. I knew the benefits of it. And I knew that keeping that studio open and opening right in the middle of all this stuff was only going to benefit people. It was private. You were detoxing. It boosts your immunity. I bet on a good horse.
Absolutely. Had you been in business before?
No, my dad's always been an entrepreneur. So I grew up around that, life.
Right.
And saw the risks sometimes that it took when the hard work paid off, working more than 60 hours a week. Like I definitely grew up knowing what it took to run a business and to be a part of that. But owning one myself, no, I had never.
Well, I think that's great though to share with the audience because I interview mostly like emerging founders. And in many cases, there are folks that don't come from a entrepreneurial background. Their family probably told them all the reasons why their business won't work. And you're definitely on the minority side of things where you actually had family that probably encouraged it because that's what they did. And you saw how it can work, right? As opposed to people hearing all the stories from their family. You don't want to go into business because I know somebody that did that and they failed. And, there's all the crazy statistics on why people fail in business, which are accurate. But quite honestly, a lot of people shouldn't be in business for themselves.
Yeah. But look, Frank, I opened up a sauna studio in South Louisiana. We're one of the hottest places on earth. Like I definitely had a lot of pushback on, are you crazy? What are you doing? Just buy one for yourself, put it in your house. Like, no, I want to share this with all my family and friends and community. I want people to see what I see and feel what I feel.
But you initially licensed the concept from a company in Vegas, right? And then you later bought the agreement. So tell me kind of the genesis of that.
Okay. So I spent about a year after I got home from that Groupon experience trying to figure out how to build it myself. A lot of research on other sauna studios throughout the country, just doing, due diligence and seeing what was out there. How can I build my own? So I ended up going to Vegas and there was a studio out there that I really, really fell in love with. If I were going to do it at that point, that's exactly how I would have done it. So I walked in, there was a girl behind the desk, happened to be the owner. And I said, hey, I'm Amanda. I'm from New Orleans. I want to do this. I want to do this with you. And they had never licensed. They had never franchised. So we spent the next 3 days I was there just going over, how to do it, what it would look like. And then it was, I think within 4 or 5 months, I had signed the lease on opening a studio.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
super cool. Awesome. So now let's bring everybody up to speed here on franchising. So first off, so you've got one company on location, you have one franchise now in Louisiana. Your brand new FDD for 2024 is about to go live here in the next few weeks. So that's got to be super exciting. But I'm kind of curious on what made you explore franchising, or why did you think franchising was right for you?
Yeah. So I didn't have that in the forefront when I was running the store. I'm owner operator,
Mm-hmm.
but I had clients constantly asking me, okay, we want to open this. And I know this story is probably familiar. A lot of entrepreneurs and franchisors go this route. So one of my clients said, okay, Amanda, I want to open up a sauna studio, a sauna and cold plunge studio. And my heart sunk. I thought she wanted to be my competitor. Like, I didn't see that she wanted to replicate my model.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when it hit me, like, okay, we opened her store. It was exactly how mine is. We had all the systems in place. This is a replicable model, and it could go fast.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can open this, and it could operate in almost any place of the country, every part of the country. So that it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, oh, okay.
Right. And a lot of people that go into franchising, well, first off, don't have franchise experience or anything in background of franchising, but a lot of people go into franchising because they get like this just overwhelming, response from people that say, I want to do this. How can I do this? And that's not necessarily always the right reason to go into franchising. That's why I want to share that with, folks that are listening, because there's some people who they have no business franchising their concept, but you said something that was very important. It was something you knew that could be replicated, right?
Right. And very easily.
Now let's take it to the next step though. What do you think you guys do at Meltwell different?
So I think that I know that having the cold plunge, the sauna, and the vitamin C shower all in one suite, it's been huge. There's not really a model out there that's like that. It's such a private, elevated experience for clients.
Mm-hmm.
There's surround sound in the suites, and you can put on your own podcast, a Frank podcast, perhaps. Your own TV show, your own sound bath in the background. You can jump from the cold plunge to the sauna to the cold plunge, or you can do just the cold plunge, or you can, do the sauna for 40 minutes in the cold plunge. It's really completely up to the client how they want to experience it. And that's a huge edge for us.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, as we start expanding your franchise concept really, really soon, are you looking to grow initially in regions of the country here, like in the Southeast, or are you thinking just kind of blow this thing out, shotgun across the country? What's your strategy for growth?
It's funny. So the advice has been kind of across the board, like keep your nucleus together,
Mm-hmm.
or I've even had like, if they're coming, sell them. Like, it's really interesting people's thought process on growth.
There are two schools of thought. What do you think?
Yeah. I like the idea of keeping our nucleus
Mm-hmm.
tight, like starting in the South, but I also think that if our foundation is strong enough that we can support training, which we can, and our team is in place, and our systems are all there, and our ops manual and all of that, fabulous stuff that we work so hard
Sure.
to make, then I think there's no reason why you can't be successful anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the two different versions, I ended up doing the shotgun nationwide approach right out of the gate. My reasoning for doing it, though, is that we were going to be first to market. And I knew I needed speed to market because I was sort of looking over my shoulder. I knew somebody else was going to be doing this after me. So yeah, speed was important. And because, well, in my case, it wasn't a storefront, I knew I could easily get people up and running. And the biggest challenge was going to be me sending staff to help the franchisees get up and running in their own territory. But I didn't have the brick and mortar thing to contend with. I think regionally, of course, you have the advantage of, you can obviously get there to them much easier. You have the ability to grow because of the brand awareness in your market. But
Yeah.
there's really not a right or a wrong answer. I think it really comes down to the preference of the founder and also knowing, do I have the infrastructure to be able to support it? So what does your team look like?
So there's myself. We have a consultant that I hired very early on, and
Mm-hmm.
I will recommend doing that for sure. I didn't know how to run a franchise. That was another, it's another business
Sure.
outside of, the sauna studio. But having somebody who's got that experience, and he's wonderful. His name is Matt Friedman, and he had 150 stores of a wing stop, and he grew it himself. It was pretty inspiring. And he's been wonderful. So I highly recommend, if you're going to do this
Mm-hmm.
from soup to nuts, hire somebody to help you. I mean, know your strengths,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to hire for your weakness, of course, but knowing what your strengths are and finding a mentor in franchising is so critical. The cool thing about our industry is we always talk about how generous the franchise community is and people willing to share. But you can make too many mistakes if you don't have somebody to lean on and to kind of get that feedback on, what to do next, right? And just somebody needs to help founders see around the corners that they can't see because they've been there before.
Right.
Cool. So, all right. So we think of starting out regionally. Tell me about now the sort of the how you got started. So you started working with Matt, and now that you've got him in your corner, what does training look like, and who are some of the staff members that help in this whole process of supporting as these new saunas open up?
Yeah, so it's super hands-on approach. That I had a heavy hand in making sure that our first franchisee was trained. I kind of mama beared him, and I've been told to pull back a little bit more and really let our team help. I as a founder want to be more involved, but I think I serve best coming in the beginning and then maybe a grand opening and still having that like relationship, but I shouldn't be there all the time. That was kind of
Right.
hard to figure out. But so hiring a training lead
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that our team has the right videos. We're doing a lot of training videos and we have a training manual. So it's going to be a mix of like the Zoom and webinars and on-site training.
Okay. How long is training?
It's going to be 2 weeks.
Okay. And how much of it is in classroom versus just online?
So it's about half and half.
Okay.
And really on site would be, they come here to our corporate store and it would be 4 or 5 days, 5 to 6 hours a day, to really be immersed in it. And then online would be the other half.
Okay.
And it's a super simple model. So it's not, it's saunas and towels, and it's very simple to figure out.
Sure. Does technology though play a role at all in support of the franchisees? Okay.
Yeah. We
So,
have an off tech package.
so tell us a little bit more about the technology on how you guys support the franchisees and how it works for them.
So we're using MindBody. That's our big point of sale system. And inside of that, we are able to do marketing, communication. We can use that to look real time at how our franchisees are doing, and even them themselves. There's a dashboard that you can see like to the minute, your revenue and clients that are roomed. I mean, it's really a cool a tech piece that we offer. Yeah, online booking and everything is through that. So,
okay. And who's your ideal franchise owner? What do you think are the traits that they need to be successful?
I would say that somebody like me, right? So I am not the multimillionaire that can open up 15 stores. That would be wonderful. But I also think that we appeal to somebody who is, the average 50, 60, $70,000 a year person too. It can be as involved as you want. So I am an operator, but you don't have to leave your job to also run these studios.
Basically, a franchise owner could, if they wanted to keep their job, they can basically institute a manager then. So this could be a manager operated store.
Yeah. Non-skilled labor. We have part-time employees. We've kind of targeted the nursing schools here. We send out email blasts. So a lot of our employees are, in healthcare, but they don't have to be,
Okay. What do you think about selling franchises single unit versus multi-unit?
Yeah. So I think multi-unit would be easier if there were a few big multi-units, like I definitely see the benefit of that. Less tail wagging of the dog,
Sure.
less franchisees with less opinions. But
Right.
yeah, I think there's benefits to both, right? There's a lot of growth with singles, and then there's a lot of more controlled with multi-unit.
Sure. So do you offer like a single unit package and a multi-unit franchise package as part of the FDD?
So we're a single unit right now.
Only single unit, but you will sell multiples of single units.
Oh, totally.
Oh, all right.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is back to your whole philosophy as a founder. You'll need to really think about how soon you want to have them open too, because obviously in each concept is different. And some concepts, of course, are set up that they sell them as multi-unit franchise packs, as a pack of 3, pack of 5 with a development schedule. So that's going to come back to you as the founder to decide how do you want them to roll this out. And of course, you're not going to want them to open multiple units too quickly, right? We don't want them to fail. But that comes back to how Amanda puts, her stamp on what Melt Wellness, Melt Well looks like.
And I know it'll just keep evolving, as we're growing.
Sure.
We're very emerging.
You guys are brand new, right? One open and a whole lot more to come in the near future, I think.
I know. They are knocking.
That's awesome. So what if I was an owner operator though of a franchise? What does a day in the life look like for me?
For me, I go in, before I started the franchising side, because, you have to pull yourself out of the business to grow the business.
Right.
So for me, I would go in, I would sauna and cold plunge before I opened.
Okay.
I would prep everything.
You got to eat your own cooking, right?
Set this tone for the day. I mean, yeah, it would completely just get me ready. But anyway, so you open the studio, there for maybe a 4 or 5 hour shift, and then, have your staff come in and relieve you. And then I was there maybe 30 hours a week.
Okay.
And then the rest of it is supplemented. We're 7 days a week. Yeah. There's not really a good day to close. We're always busy.
You guys open 7 days a week?
We are.
Wow. And what are the hours?
We're open 8 to 8 during the week and 10 to 6 on the weekend.
When it comes to trying to get clients, do you offer a support or a way of helping your saunas open, find clients?
We have a couple of ways to do that. So the packages that we offer, we have memberships. We have just drop-in rates. We have just intro specials for first-time clients. So we have a lot of ways for bringing people in to take that, luxury sauna feel and driving the price down, based on their needs. Yeah.
And the great part of the membership is it's a recurring revenue, right, for the franchisee.
Right. And that is super attractive. That's
of course.
the number one thing that, when you pitch this to the people, your attorney especially is like, I love that model.
Right. Well, it smoothens out the revenue that people aren't dealing, right? You're not dealing with the highs and lows each month. What's the percentage, would you say? I mean, just maybe approximate percentage of your clients that are on membership versus drop-in?
I'd say we're 40%.
Membership.
40% memberships. Yeah.
That's great. That's stronger than I thought.
It's awesome.
That's a really good number.
Well, we have a couple of different options. So,
okay.
It's affordable for all levels.
And what's the investment range for the franchise overall?
So it'll cost you about $350 to get in. Okay. There's a $35,000 franchise fee with a 6% royalty and 2% brand fund. And we're trying to keep it under 400, so 300 to 350 to get in. I would be able to do that working, in corporate America, but
sure. Yeah. I would imagine the build out doesn't take a whole lot.
It's not a whole lot. Most of the investment goes into the equipment.
Does it? What would you say? How much is the equipment overall, you think, out of that total investment?
I would say around $50,000.
Okay.
The build out, depending on if you have to start from scratch, or if you have to demo it, if they're going to do leasehold improvements, all of that stuff plays a role.
How about the ideal locations for build out? What does that look like? Are they in shopping centers or are they in light industrial? Where do you like to put them?
Shopping centers are optimal, great foot traffic. Being around fitness brands like Pure Barre, Orange Theory, or even near a Starbucks, or Lululemon, like those are definitely a wonderful synergy.
Right, of course.
You think about it as going to do your workout and then taking the complement of recovery, and adding it into the same day. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that.
Absolutely. We don't need to be next to McDonald's though.
I mean, you could, but no.
Sure.
I guess you could eat a burger and go sweat it out.
Absolutely. Burger first, then sweat it out. All right. I love asking this question, even though you're brand new at franchising. Okay. What has been your biggest surprise since franchising all of, 7-8 months now?
The biggest surprise, everyone has an opinion on how you should do anything.
Yes,
right?
They do. I'm glad you learned that already. You learned that already.
It's really interesting. And being new at it, I am a sponge. I'm absorbing all of it for sure. But franchising, man, there's a lot of rules. There are a ton of rules. It's a whole other world.
I'm not a huge fan of business regulation, generally speaking, but what I love about franchising is I do love that there is the franchise disclosure document regulation. It's standardized, and you're setting the expectation though, Amanda, with your potential franchisees. Both hands are above the table and you're telling them exactly what you're all about, what your offer is. There's no surprises. And that's the beauty of it, is that people can never come back and say, well, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. It's everything should be in the FDD.
It's if you have a proven model, that's your best selling tool.
Absolutely.
So going through and building that, I was more impressed. I'm thinking if I were a franchisee, I would love this. Our numbers are awesome.
Awesome. Well, I don't want you to get into trouble, so let's not talk about the numbers specifically here on the podcast.
I can't.
You cannot talk about that. But going back to what you said, yes, everybody has an opinion in franchising, and your franchisees will have lots of opinions. But I've got to tell you, though, that some of the best ideas will come from your franchisees. You'll see over time that will happen. Yeah. And it's a very interesting dynamic that you're experiencing as a new franchisor, because right now you're in the mode where you know everything. Everything is in your head, right? And you know how to train, how to open a melt well, but there'll come a time eventually where you have enough franchisees where they're going to be on the front line and they're going to be sharing some great ideas with you. And you're going to have to figure out as this founder to walk this kind of a tightrope of figuring out and filtering out what's like really working. What are some things that are real, that are great opportunities, and what are some maybe challenges? And then you're going to get some people that are just going to complain about everything all the time because, well, that's what they do anyway. But that's not even franchising, right? That's just people's opinions. But I'm glad you've already got that lesson about a lot of opinions in franchising.
Yes,
cool.
Very much so.
Tell me what your vision is. So how big is big for this?
Is the space station too big?
Oh, okay. All right. Nice.
I don't see this going away. I think over the next 10 to 15 years, attention to wellness and preventative care and quality over quantity of life is just going to be highlighted even more. I think that this model and that this concept can fit anywhere. I mean, it could be a neighborhood thing, or it could be in the middle of a big city. It's a very cool space to bring a wellness modality into your life.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have an opinion I'm going to throw at you.
Oh God, what?
IV therapy. Have you thought about that? I'm sure it's come across your desk. What are your thoughts on incorporating IV therapy in Meltwell?
I think that IV therapy is a wonderful tool. I've used it, but I think keeping it simple is really our strong suit, right? So
love it.
So keeping the heat, the cold, and the vitamin C shower. I mean, I just don't think that there's a better combo than that.
That's great. I'm glad you have an opinion about that. I do. You got to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Yeah, it's there.
No IV therapy. It's out. All right,
Good
fine.
for neighbor. We can be next door.
That's true. That's true. So if someone was looking to get involved in your franchise, what's something that you tell them? I want to hear like a piece of advice when you want them to do research, because you don't want to just sell to anybody. But what are some of the things you tell them when you say, when you start looking into this, here are some of the things I want you to think about and look into?
I think number one is, why are you getting into this, right? So like, why infrared sauna therapy and cold plunging versus going to open a Quiznos or, something like that. I think that the core of someone opening this studio needs to be that they care about people and that they care about the health and wellness of people, making people feel better than they did when they walked in, right? So that they leave better. I think if you don't believe in the product, you're going to have a hard time being passionate about it and selling it to your clients. I mean, that's how I've learned that this business has grown, because I am in it to win it. I believe in it. I use it, and I feel super strongly about it.
Yeah. I always say that you have to love what you do, because if you don't, you're not going to get through the rough days, the bad days, the bad weeks, the bad months, because in business, stuff happens, right? You have to get through it. You have to love
and
what
you got to
do.
be positive. Like, put a positive spin on things. Things are going to happen. And not every day goes like you think it's going to go.
No.
But if you make your clients feel like this is a positive experience, you call them by name, you have that camaraderie and that relationship, I mean, they're going to come back.
You definitely learned some entrepreneurial skills from Dad, it sounds like, right? And you've gotten some advice. Can you maybe share a piece of advice that he's given you?
Believe in yourself, for sure. You have that gnawing gut feeling. You're going to get opinions, just like we talked about, thrown at you every which way. Be open, but believe in yourself.
You have to be your own biggest fan, right?
Yeah. And maybe have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder,
Sure.
give you that edge a little bit, but believe in yourself.
All right, Amanda. So what's a fun fact that nobody knows about you that you'd like to share?
Well, so I just started running and swimming and biking in June of last year. Couldn't run a mile.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can see this, but
Oh, that's a serious bike.
Frank, I'm going to do a half Ironman in August.
No way. Wow.
Huge goal. Scares the you-know-what out of me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to do it.
And you couldn't run a mile last year.
Yeah. And I ran a half marathon last weekend.
And
mind blown. Your mind will tell you can't do things. And Frank, you can do them.
All right, Amanda. And I know that somehow the sauna and cold plunge impacted your ability to do that, right?
That recovery, there's just nothing like it.
Good stuff. Amanda, if someone was interested in learning more about Meltwell, how do they get more information on the franchise?
Yeah, meltwellfranchising.com is our website. And then you can also go to meltsauna.com. That's also another site that we're using. But yeah, we're all over Instagram. We're on social media. We're out there, Frank. We're ready to roll.
All right. And you guys are close to exploding. In just a few weeks, the new FDD will be out. So that'll be awesome. All right. So I'm not going to let you off the hook, even though you're a new franchise. So I do a thing called the tip jar, is how I end every podcast, because the franchise community is so generous. So if I was looking to franchise my company, before I dived in, what would be a piece of advice that you'd give me?
Know your strengths and weaknesses. Know them, fight for your strengths, but also hire someone to help you with your weaknesses.
Amanda, that is fantastic advice. That is great.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you all the best. We're going to be watching Meltwell, and I'm sure you guys are going to absolutely blow things up.
Thanks, Frank. I'll be waiting for your call when you're ready to open.
All right. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.